Thanks tonight. This is really cool for me. Um, like Rob said, I've known Tage since he's been about, you have that picture you could put up on the screen? Since about that size. Um, when he was a 3-year-old with his dad in Hartford, we used to do chapels back in 1999. Anybody remember back in 99? Rob Levin probably does, yeah. uh, Chapels in Hartford, and then Tage's brother was born when they were in Hartford Tice. So this is kind of special. I've done player interviews before, but this is kind of special for me because I've seen Tage grow up. Kind of lost connection here and there as hockey travels, which he'll probably share with you a little bit. But this is really special to see him come full circle around playing in the NHL and following Jesus in his life. So I just got a couple of questions here. If you just talk a little bit about your background, like where you're from, you were born, and I gave a little bit of it, but if you could expound on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. Not really a hockey hotbed, but my dad was playing there at the time for the Phoenix Roadrunners, probably a team you guys never heard of before. But it was the farm team for LA. He was drafted by them, and he played pro hockey, so it was kind of living out of a suitcase for most of my childhood. I moved from Phoenix shortly after I was born to Colorado, and then from Colorado, to the East Coast and kind of worked my way up and down the East Coast wherever my dad was playing. And then once he retired, he got into coaching, and so kind of just been following in his footsteps, living the hockey life, moving around, and meeting new people along the way.
Could you just fill us in a little bit on how that journey went? I know you played as a U.S. national team and UConn, and just the journey, the travel that you got to the level you're at now.
Yeah, so I played youth hockey. Most of my youth hockey was probably in Illinois, around your guys' age, 12 to 14, 15, and then I moved to Alaska for a couple years. Played up there for 2 years, and then moved out east. Like Rick said, I got the opportunity to play at the national program for the U.S. When I was 16, and it was a tough challenge for me. I was probably not ready for that. I was the 13th forward there, so I didn't really play a lot. And going into a new team, it was kind of something, building off of what Stastny was talking about, going out of your comfort zone. I kind of wanted to just stay at home and, play where I was comfortable and stay in the same situation. But, obviously, I was forced out of my comfort zone and, went there, and it was great for me. Made new friends, and it was a good exposure for me, playing in the USHL, and then we played partial college schedule, so playing against college players at 16 kind of helped get my name on the map there. So I look back at it now, and that was God speaking to me and my family there. Had I not made that jump and just decided to stay comfortable at home and continue to play at home and kind of just not push myself or challenge myself, probably wouldn't have been where I am today.
And how did you end up in UConn? Why did you pick UConn?
Yeah, so UConn was right after my year at the program. I was actually a junior in high school when I was at the program, and I was getting talked to by some colleges, and I had opportunities to go pretty much anywhere in Hockey East, and it was going to be my draft year coming up, so I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was going to play a lot and have an opportunity. I think kids, and I know I did it too, get wrapped up in you want to play for the best team, and it's not always the best thing for you. For me personally, if I had gone to a school like BC or BU, I might have been overshadowed by some other players that were better or older than me. But once again, I had a long talk with my family and sat down and decided that UConn was the best spot for me. They're a new program in Hockey East, so they played against really good teams, and it was going to be great exposure for me playing against older players and a good stepping stone to pro hockey.
They had a good chapel program there, right?
They had a great chapel program, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Rick did our chapel at UConn for the 2 years I was there. So no, it's cool. It's you saw the picture earlier. It's a small world, the hockey world. So it's pretty neat to you run into the same people throughout your life.
Yeah. So our book this week for this year for Hockey Ministries, the title is Turning Point, Turning Points in Your Life. So right now we're going through the book and talking about all different turning points, people in the Bible. Some players are in there talk about their turning points in life. And we don't know, sometimes that could be a different turning point for everybody. What would you contribute your turning point in life that really maybe shook your world, maybe changed your direction, or really solidified, knew that God was calling you in a certain direction?
Yeah, I know for me, I grew up in a Christian home. You know, going to church every Sunday, and I always told people I was a Christian. Didn't really know the meaning of it. I knew I believed in God and stuff. It wasn't until I moved to Alaska actually that I gave my life to Christ and actually understood the relationship that you make and you grow on between yourself and the Lord. And I was fortunate enough to play with a kid on my team. His father was actually a pastor, so we ended up going to his church, and I, he was one of my best friends on my team, and I talked to him a lot. Just kind of interested in what it meant to be a Christian, and growing my faith, and kind of help others. I think that was the moment I really gave my life to Christ, and wanted to help other people give their lives to Christ because of how great it made me feel. Um, and then building off that, I actually had a kind of a big injury the following year. I tore my ACL, MCL. I was out for a long time. It was a big year for me too. I thought it was a huge year. You want to play for the best teams, and like I said, and you're that young, dream of playing in the NHL, and think one year that you miss is gonna cost it. And um, it was a really tough year for me. I was getting passed up by a lot of teams. I didn't get drafted in the USHL or the OHL or anyone. Everyone was passing on me, and I was injured, going through a tough injury, and I was kind of doubting myself and lost a lot of confidence, and kind of lost my way a little bit. I wouldn't say lost my way, but kind of worried about that most. And God took a back seat there, and it was amazing once I put Him back in perspective, in the front of my life. It was amazing how my life in hockey turned around and became so much easier. Um, just things started clicking for me. Had a great year, and then that was the year I went to the program the next year. So, um, for me, it was just giving my life to Christ. That tough transition there with the injury, and then that following season, just making God my priority, and doing everything for Him, playing for Him, living each day for Him.
So, like, what really clicked after that injury? Like putting God first. Did you hear a message, or did you talk to somebody, or like what was that certain turning point that made you really turn your life to Christ and really trust Him for what He had for you?
Yeah, well, when I was injured, things obviously are tough, and I kept trying to fix it myself, right? Like, I thought I could solve it, and things just kept getting worse, and kept getting worse and worse, and you realize that you're not in control of anything really. That everything happens for a reason. That God is there, and He's the only one that can get you out of tough situations. So once I realized that and just kind of gave it all to Him, you know, there was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I had no more worries about the injury. Just kind of let everything go, and He took care of the rest.
That's cool. That's really cool. What are some of the like habits and things that you do to maintain or develop your relationship with Jesus? Like, I know the season gets crazy. I know you have chapel here in St. Louis, but things get busy. Maybe you can share with some of these guys, like, what do you do on a daily basis to maintain your relationship with Jesus during the season, or even off the season too?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have a family that, like I said, grew up, with really strong relationships with Christ. Even my mom's side of the family is, very connected to me and very, impactful in my life. And I get daily messages from my aunt. She sends me scripture every morning, and how you wake up, and I'm sure all of you check Instagram or Twitter or whatever in the morning. That's the first thing you do. So, I've really tried to make the first thing I do every morning. Um, you know, read that message from my aunt, and you know sit and pray in the morning, whatever it is, a minute, 2 minutes, just to start your day. It kind of puts the rest of your day in perspective, because I think you get so busy, and it's easy to lose track and lose sight of him. Especially, I'm sure all of you guys want to play in the NHL, and that's all I thought about growing up. And when that's all you think about, and then it becomes a reality, you put all your eggs in one basket, and once again, God takes a back seat, which should be the other way around. And so that's how some of the daily habits I try to maintain.
Do you have a favorite scripture verse or verses that you can key on when you get discouraged, or that really lift you up or encourage you? Because we know the season's long, and there are a lot of ups and downs, just like in life. Maybe you can share a couple of verses if you have one with these guys.
Yeah, I've got a favorite verse. I actually have it, printed out and taped in my stall. On every team I'm in, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. Kind of goes back to that injury thing. Like, you can't control anything. Once you put your worries aside, just accept that God's got a plan for you, and that it's better than what you can imagine. Then that's when it really becomes true.
So, how does your faith influence your career or the way you play and how you treat other teammates? Because there's not not everyone on the team is Christian, and how does that affect you, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, sometimes it can be tough. I feel like today's society, Christ is getting pushed to the side more and more, and I feel like I've been blessed enough to be on a stage and a platform playing in the NHL to, be able to speak to people about Him, and like I'm here today. I'm blessed to, be able to play in the NHL and speak to all of you guys, because I was in the same seats as you one day. So I think it can be challenging at times to get wrapped up in society and all the social media and stuff and the worldly things. So it's important to make sure you find time for Christ.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about how your relationship with Christ affected you on the teams that you were on, because if you shared your faith with other people, other teammates, or maybe you just didn't, maybe you led by example, and were you ever put in a position where you had to, I'm going to say compromise your faith, but just say, somebody challenged you on your faith? Were you ever you ever put in those positions like that?
Yeah, actually, all the time. I mean, one of the ways I was impacted positively is that kid from Alaska. Had he not, talked to me about the Bible and about Christ, I might not be as firm a believer as I am today. But I'm sure all of you have gone through it where you try to talk to Christ about a buddy, or talk about Christ to a buddy, and they have questions about the Bible. And for me, I mean, I'm not a whiz, so I don't know how to answer some of those things. It catches me off guard, and I've been in a tough spot a time or two. But we actually at our school at UConn had chapel through Rick, and it was kind of cool to see freshman year. They had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 guys that came freshman year, and then it was tough, to go out of your comfort zone. Once again, speaking off that, to go out and ask people where they stand with Christ, and how much do they know about Him, and just invite them to chapel. And I think sophomore year we saw the numbers grow just a little bit, but still, I mean, I think that's the point of being a Christian and being a believer, is to help others and help others connect to Christ.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about that. That was really an amazing time at UConn, because we didn't really have a chapel room, or a room we could do chapel in. So we would do it in the lobby, and sometimes we would do it in the team room. But a lot of times there were students studying in there. We couldn't do it, so we do it right in the lobby. And there'd be 4 or 5, maybe 6 sometimes of us sitting around doing our study, and every single teammate would come walking by, and they would just look, and they snicker maybe a little bit, or they say, "Are you coming?" And to one of the chapel attendees, and they said, "No, I'll just go ahead. I'll catch up with you." So I want to give these guys at UConn a lot of credit, and especially with Tage leading the charge there. when our main leader left, graduated, Kyle, they really took the baton and ran with it. And really, when you think about that, with the other players coming by, they really stood their faith pretty strong on that. That was pretty good. You guys just stood there. Um, all right, if you just want to share with these guys, like Paul did, like what advice can you give these guys on furthering their faith with a team, with teammates that maybe they're not Christian? Just what advice can you give these young guys on how to encourage them and stay strong in the faith in a sport that really is tough to play in if you're a Christian?
Yeah, I think gonna build off of what Paul's talked about, going outside your comfort zone. I know he was talking more in terms of hockey and working on certain things, but for me, I think going outside your comfort zone in your faith, talking to your friends, maybe when it's not the cool or popular thing to do, you might get teased or poked fun at for doing it, but you're doing the right thing. And I think for me, I got questioned a lot and got stumped on a lot of answers, and something I've been working on is becoming more knowledgeable on the Bible and certain things, so you have the right responses for when they do ask you certain questions. No, I really appreciate you guys having me and taking the time to listen. I know it's probably not the most fun thing sitting in a chair listening to someone talk, but I really appreciate it and hope you guys had a fun week at camp and continue to have fun growing your faith.